This is Yumi Radio. You're listening to the Yumi Radio Morning Show. I'm DJ Kelly, and it is now time for our news roundup. Every morning, we look at what's in the news. If you've ever traveled, if you hope to travel, if your family travel, then it's important for you to know what the data says, what's the statistics, what's happening, because not all migrants were chose to become migrants. There are times when persons just wanted to visit some place, and involuntary migration happens. And sometimes persons are only seeking to go on vacation, and then they find themselves in spaces and places where they're not able to go back home. You also have circumstances where you have human trafficking. You also have people who travel for labor, and all sorts of things happen. So if you travel, or if you plan to travel, or if you have family who travel, then it's important for you to know what's happening in migration trends. In the business trend, we also share that too, because we promote entrepreneurship. We support entrepreneurs, especially persons in the lower socioeconomic status. It's good for you to get access to the information so you know what's out there. What are investors investing in? What are the projects that will be taking off for 2020? It's important for you to know and have the data so you know how to make this so you can make informed decisions. So every morning we share that with you. So let's begin with the New York Times, all the news that's fit to print. February 3. Okay, so in the weather today, clouds and sunshine, breezy with a high 56, and tonight partly cloudy, low 43. Tomorrow sunny to partly cloudy, noticeably milder, high 53. And the weather map can be seen on I can see that you're talking to me. Someone is texting me, but I'm not able to read it at the moment. But I'll check it, I promise. I'll definitely check it and let you know. Okay, so the weather map can be seen on page A16. On the front page, we have a sports cover, a sports image, and a guy who's who looks happy. He's either really happy or really sad, but he's very animated. A win 50 years in the making. That's the headline beneath it. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs beat the 49ers. 31-20 for their first Super Bowl championship since 1970. You can read about that on page D1. In other headlines, we go straight to, it seems as though we go straight to politics. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Not yet? Okay, so let me just go ahead and read the first one for you. The first headline: a fever of 104, hours to wait and no relief. I figure we're talking about China now, or at least the coronavirus. Bed space and hope dwindle in Wuhan. And this story is by Amy Kin, and it's out of Wuhan, China. Weak with fever. And Joanna waited in line for 7 hours outside the hospital in the cold, hoping to get tested for the new coronavirus, which doctors suspected she had contracted. Miss Anne, it's Anne Joanna. Yeah, Miss Anne, 67, needed an official diagnosis from a hospital to qualify for treatment, but the one she and her son raced to last week had no space, even to test her. The next hospital they were referred to here in Wuhan, the city of 11 million people at the center of the outbreak, was full too, they said. They finally got an intravenous drip for Miss Anne's fever, but that was all. Since then, Miss Anne has quarantined herself at home. She and her son eat separately, wear masks at home, and are constantly disinfecting their apartment. Miss Anne's health is declining rapidly, and even keeping water down is a struggle. Here's a quote from her son. I can't let mom die at home, said her son, Heejun. Every day I want to cry, but when I cry, there are no tears. There's no hope. As countries race to deal with an outbreak that has begun spreading around the world, inciting panic and disrupting the global economy, the residents of Wuhan are waging a daily battle to survive an illness that has sickened more than 4,100 people and killed 224 in their city alone. I remember when I read the first story on this and 2 persons had died. We're now at 224. And that was like 2 weeks ago, or a little over a week ago. It's sad. Another headline says, trade networks face new menace in a coronavirus. China in crosshairs. With dominance comes risk that dwarf the impact of SARS. This story is by Peter S. Goodman. In 2002, when a lethal pneumonia-like virus known as SARS emerged in China, the country's factories were mostly churning out low-cost goods like t-shirts and sneakers for customers around the world. 17 years later, another deadly virus is spreading rapidly through the world's most populous country, but China has evolved into a principal element of the global economy, making the epidemic a substantially more potent threat to fortunes. International companies that rely on Chinese factories to make their products and depend on Chinese consumers for sales are already warning of costly problems. Apple, Starbucks, and IKEA have temporarily closed stores in China. Shopping malls are deserted, threatening sales of Nike sneakers, Under Armour clothing, and McDonald's hamburgers. Factories making cars for General Motors and Toyota are delaying production as they wait for workers to return from the Lunar New Year holiday, which has been extended by the government to halt the spread of the virus. International airlines, including American, Delta, United, Lufthansa, and British Airways, have cancelled flights to China. That story continues on page A11. But before I go, China's economic growth is expected to slip this year to 5.6%, down from 6.1% last year, according to the conservative forecast from Oxford Economics. I just had to share that data. I love data, you know. And here are 2 other headlines on that issue on the coronavirus. Pandemic looms. Rapidly rising caseloads are alarming researchers who fear the virus may make its way across the globe. That story continues on page A12. Panicked travelers scramble for the few remaining airline tickets out of China before quarantines take hold. That story continues on page A10. In other stories, headline, Democrats pitched a huge tent in Iowa and it's a hive of angst. That story is by Matt Flegenheimer and it's out of Iowa. Democrats had a certain vision for this. There would be boundless throngs braving the Iowa slush, aghast at the incumbent and aroused by his prospective successors. There would be a presidential field that looked like the country. There would be unity or something like it, burying intra-party squabbles beneath a heap of agreed-upon progressive policies, or maybe even articles of impeachment to complete the job early. And now, well, from an event space in Newton, where a hand-countable crowd whispered anxieties about Joseph R. Biden Jr. to a union hall in Ottumwa, where the filmmaker Michael Moore filled in for a Washington-bound Bernie Sanders with talk of democratic socialism and Icelandic gender parity. The restless final Iowa days of this endless pre-primary campaign have less resembled a resistance fantasy than a kind of rolling, low-grade anxiety attack for Democrats. That story continues on page A19. Here's another story, another headline under this same topic. Iowa population aptly reflects graying of American economy. This article is by Dion Searcy, Alan Rappaport, Trip Gabriel, and Robert Gibeloff. Gibeloff. Gebeloff. Like most campaign events held in daylight hours during the week, Pete Buttigieg's town hall meeting in Dubuque recently was a sea of gray hair. When the time came for questions, many were from older people sharing personal stories of declining health, concerns about the cost of prescription drugs, and questions about access to experiential treatment. A man who said he and his wife just entered the realm of septuagenarians brought up the topic of assisted suicide, asking Mr. Buttigieg about legislation to help seniors with severe dementia have an assisted transition. Whoa. With an impeachment reprieve over the weekend, all of the top Democratic presidential candidates were back in Iowa this weekend seeking support in Monday's caucuses from an electorate that is more white and more rural than most of the United States. This story continues on page A19. Wow. Based on what this is saying, people are feeling the economic pressures to the degree that they're thinking of assisted transitions. That's wow. Are we talking about the United States? Wow. Okay. In other news, the headline is, in the end, a clash of giant egos triumphed over subway repairs. This story is by Jim Dwyer. One day in October, three powerful figures in New York affairs met for a serious lunch at Francis Tavern in Lower Manhattan. On one side were Patrick J. Foy, the chairman of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, and Catherine S. Wild, the president of the Partnership of New York City, which represents business leaders. In front of them sat Andy Byford, the head of the city's subway and buses, who had beguiled New Yorkers in less than 2 years with his spirited efforts to turn around a transit system in crisis. One day earlier, though, Mr. Byford had submitted a scorching letter of resignation that detailed grievances with his ultimate boss, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo, including complaints that micromanaging by the governor and his office was making it impossible for him to do his job. By the end of lunch, Mr. Foy and Ms. Wild had calmed Mr. Byford, sketching out a deal that kept him in place and made the harsh letter disappear, according to three people familiar with the October events. In truth, the Byford-Cuomo relationship was already beyond salvage, and late last month, Mr. Byford resigned. It was a startling development, and to many of his admirers, a worrying stumble at the nation's largest transportation system, where a historic rebuilding program is underway. Behind a curtain of measured statements was a low-decibel, slow-motion collision between two of New York's most commanding personalities, supremely confident figures gifted at public relations, masters not only of their domains but fluent in each other's as well. This story continues on page A24, and there's a photo of both gentlemen, and under the photo where Governor Cuomo is, it says, a series of slights created trouble between Andy Byford, top, and Governor Andrew Cuomo. Oh, wow. Yeah. In other news, headlines, there's another photo here. Oh, there's like 4 photos showing the Iowa meeting. Wow. Okay, so in other news, U.S. bans Sanders families and slams door on much of Africa. By Ruth McLean and Abdi Latif Dahir, the newlyweds had already been apart for half their year-long marriage. Miriam, I can't pronounce that surname, is Nwegbe. Is that Nwebe? Not sure. Miriam was in Nigeria. Her husband was in Baltimore, and until she could join him, everything was on hold. Finding a home together, trying for their first baby, becoming an American family. Then, on Friday, their lives were thrown into disarray by the expansion of President Trump's ban on immigration to include 6 new countries, including 4 in Africa. Nigeria, the continent's most populous nation, was one of them. America has killed me, Ms. Miriam's husband, Ikenna, an optometrist, texted her when he heard, "We are finished." A year after the Trump administration announced that a major pillar of its new strategy for Africa was to counter the growing influence of China and Russia by expanding economic ties to the continent, it slammed the door shut on Nigeria and the continent's biggest economy. The travel restrictions also apply to 3 other African countries: Sudan, Tanzania, and Eritrea, as well as to Myanmar, which is accused of genocide against its Muslim population, and Kyrgyzstan, a former Soviet state. The ban will prevent thousands of people from being able to move to the United States. The initial ban, which was put into effect in 2017, restricted travel from some Muslim-majority countries as part of Mr. Trump's plan to keep out, in quote, radical Islamic terrorists. It has already affected more than 135 million people. That story continues on page A5. In other headlines, in Sports Monday, Djokovic wins Australian Open with his 17th Grand Slam title. Novak Djokovic closed in on his rivals, page D8. In obituaries, sitting down for civil rights. Oh, I was here thinking, how is it that obituaries are coming before the international and national news? But now I understand why. It's Black History Month. In 1892, Homer Plessy fought segregation on a train car overlooked. Page B5. In international headlines, Israel puts off annexations. The Trump administration sought a delay in taking West Bank settlements, prompting fears from Netanyahu allies that it may cost them votes. A toothless embargo in Libya, bombing that killed and wounded migrants, may have been a war crime. A UN inquiry found one problem: it failed to name a culprit. Page A5. A claim in U.S. sailor's death. In an audio tape message, Al-Qaeda's leader in Yemen said his group directed the shooter who attacked a base in Florida in December. Page A6. In national headlines, ending the forever war. Critics in both parties are calling for the United States to quit resorting to military action abroad in the name of fighting terrorism. Page A14. GOP's emerging defense. More Republicans say while President Trump's call with Ukraine wasn't perfect, it doesn't merit removal. That continues on page A17. And in New York, seeking redemption in Queens, Hiram Monserrat, who was expelled from New York's legislature a decade ago, is running again. And that continues on page A22. And in business, Bezos sued in tabloid leak. The brother of Jeff Bezos's girlfriend, Michael Sanchez, says he was trying to protect his sister. Page B1. And complaints, then an exit. Monica Mitro, a top L Brands executive, was said to have complained of harassment, then she was gone. That continues on page B1, and that ends our coverage of the New York Times front page for today. Interesting times. I think we're in interesting times. I was going to look at, for migration trends, I was going to look at how to enter the United States and go through the visa information, but I feel curious as to what is happening with regards to the bans. What I'll do is share that information tomorrow. I'm going to look into it so we can have some conversation about it. This is why migration is important to talk about, because, well, you know what? Instead, I'm going to share some information. I'm going to share the trends, because I think we need to understand what migration is about, what are the trends, how it impacts our bottom line, our GDP, and all of those things, because it's one of those subject areas that we talk about all the time, but we don't, and research shows that the conversations around migration are uninformed and it's not data-based. But it's important for us, especially persons who are impacted by decisions around migration. It's important for you to know what the data says. You need to know what it says. It's very important. Before we go to migration news, I just want to highlight, of course, last week, we would all have heard the news about Kobe Bryant and what happened with regards to his helicopter that crashed and took his life, along with that of his daughter and 7 more important lives in that crash. We just want to do a little highlight on his life. He was a 5-time NBA champion and global sports icon. So we're not going to talk about the accident. I just would like to highlight some of his achievements in observance of his contribution to this world, you know. So remembering Kobe Bryant has a long and impressive list of career accolades and accomplishments. And if you're on our app, you can follow this story in our paper, Power in Diaspora. This is on page, page 2. The story is on page 2. So Kobe Bryant has a long and impressive list of career accolades and accomplishments. From the time he entered the NBA at the age of 18, the awards have continued to pile up as he began to make his mark in the league. Here are some of Kobe's most noteworthy accomplishments in his storied basketball career. 5-time NBA champion, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2009, and 2010. And we share a quote under each of the achievements. So, words can't describe the pain I'm feeling, former NBA superstar Michael Jordan said in a statement Sunday afternoon. I loved Kobe. He was like a brother to me. We used to talk often, and I will miss those conversations very much. He was a fierce competitor, one of the greats of the game, and a creative force. He was also a 17-time NBA All-Star, 17 consecutive selections. And this quote comes from President Barack Obama. Kobe was a legend on the court and just getting started in what would have been just as meaningful a second act. said former President Barack Obama, who, along with former First Lady Michelle Obama, Mr. Bryant referred to as friends in 2018. To lose Gianna is even more heartbreaking to us as parents. Another achievement, 1997 slam dunk champion. And here's another quote: "Most people will remember Kobe as the magnificent athlete who inspired a whole generation of basketball players." And this was tweeted by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, another Los Angeles Lakers legend. "But I will always remember him as a man who was much more than an athlete." Another achievement, 12 all-defensive team selections, 9 first-team selections. Another quote: "I mean, words can't describe, and it doesn't do any justice to who he is and how he impacted the sports world. It's just not basketball." Washington Wizards coach Scott Brooks said, "The guy had a mentality that you want your team to play with. The toughness, the determination. Not many guys, if any, played the game better." And another achievement of Kobe's, 81 points versus Raptors, second most points scored in an NBA game. "The world weeps. The basketball community mourns." Ted Leonsis, owner of the Washington Wizards, Capitals and Mystics, tweeted, "Kobe is the GOAT, beloved and respected by all, stunned and shaken to the core." Another achievement, 20 seasons with the Lakers, most seasons with one NBA team. Dwayne Wade, the former NBA star, captured the general disbelief simply tweeting, "No, God, please, no." Shaquille O'Neal, another former teammate, said via Twitter, "There's no words to express the pain I'm going through with this tragedy of losing my niece Gigi and my brother at Kobe Bryant. I love you and you will be missed. My condolences go out to the Bryant family and the families of the other passengers on board. I'm sick right now." Another achievement, 12 three-pointers versus Seattle. Most threes in a game. Another quote: "The sad part about today is he was the one everyone looked up to, especially this generation of players." Atlanta Hawks coach Lloyd Pierce said, "To see the way he was coming out of retirement in playing to being just a leader of people, WNBA, AAU programs, children's books. We lost a leader. It's hard. Our locker room is shaken. The NBA is shaken. The community is shaken. Everyone is." Another achievement, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, 2009 and 2010. And another quote: "Every guy in that locker room could probably tell you they looked up to Kobe," said Aaron Wiggins, a 21-year-old basketball player at the University of Maryland. "Somebody like him, like Kobe Bryant, you just don't expect. I mean, he just seems untouchable. You don't expect somebody like him to leave so fast." And the final achievement that we've listed here, 2 Olympic gold medals, Team USA 2008 and 2012. And another quote: "He always treats me well when he saw me," said Alex Ovechkin, the Washington Capitals star. "You know, it's hard. He was a legend in the basketball world and the whole world, and it is tough. Still can't believe it." Kobe Bryant, who retired in 2016 before adding an Academy Award to his considerable trophy case 2 years later, died Sunday in a helicopter crash northwest of Los Angeles. He was 41 years old. I just want to take I'm going to take 30 seconds of silence for Kobe and all the persons who died in that crash. Thank you so much for taking that moment of silence with us. On to the next news. We're going to be looking today at migration trends. And just for the persons who are texting, I'm on the radio, so if I don't respond to you live, then I'll respond to you after. Thank you so much for your feedback. Global migration trends, and this information is coming to you from the International Office for Migration and their website iom.int. The Global Migration Indicators 2018 report is a snapshot of what we know about migration today. The data is organized along 17 key migration themes and based largely on data taken from Global Migration Data Portal, IOM's one-stop shop for international migration data. The report aims to provide a baseline for objectives in the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration and migration-related targets included in the Sustainable Development Goals. So the first one is migration population stocks. 258 million international migrants were counted globally in 2017. People residing in a country other than their country of birth. This represented 3.4% of the world's total population. Then there's migration flows. 5 million foreign-born persons entered OECD countries in 2016. Labor migrants, 150.3 million migrant workers were counted globally in 2015. International students, 4.8 million international students were counted in 2016, up from 2 million in 2000. Remittances, 466 billion of remittances were sent to low and middle income countries in 2017. This is more than 3 times the size of official development assistance. Displacement, 68.5 million individuals were forcibly displaced worldwide due to persecution, conflict, generalized violence, human rights violations, or other reasons by the end of 2017. Irregular migrants, 50 million irregular migrants were estimated to be living around the world in 2009, and 25.4 million registered refugees were counted in 2017. Resettlement, 102,800 refugees were admitted for resettlement worldwide in 2017. 6,163 migrants lost their lives or went missing during migration in 2017 at a minimum. In trafficking and modern slavery, 25 million victims of forced labor were estimated in 2016. Out of those, 5 million may have crossed an international border. 2.5 million irregular migrants were smuggled for an economic return of US dollars 5.5 to 7 billion dollars in 2016. 72,176 voluntary returns were assisted by IOM in 2017 worldwide. 6.7 trillion in contribution. Migrants contributed 6.7 trillion US dollars to global GDP in 2015, a share of 9.4 of the global GDP that year. 14% children. In 2017, children represented 14% of the stock of international migrants. 48.8% represented, in 2017 as well, women represented 48.8% of the stock of international migrants. 18.8 million people in 135 countries were newly displaced by sudden onset disasters within their own countries in 2017. 39 countries have taken part in IOM's Migration Governance Indicators project as of 2018. And 66 this is for potential migration. 66 million adults, or 1.3% of the world's adult population, had plans to move permanently to another country in the next 12 months in 2015. 22% of the world's population is generally more likely to want national immigration to be kept at its present level, 22%, or increased 21% rather than decreased 34% in 2015. And finally, migration data capacity, over 87% of countries asked about country of birth, 75% asked for citizenship, and 50% for the year or period of arrival in their 2010 censuses. And that's it today for Migration Matters. I'm not going to cover the US visa information until tomorrow when we look at what happens with the ban in the African countries. Our next trend highlight is we're going to look at also, this is coming from Power in Diaspora, our newspaper. You can go to our app and click on it to follow that story. Social media statistics for 2020. So this is the reality, right? We've gone digital. I think we all know by now, because every time you walk out on the street, nobody's talking. Everybody's on their phone. And PayPal, Google, and all of them have released the data showing where most purchases are coming from. And if the purchases are not done on the mobile, then they researched it on mobile before making a purchase. So if you're running a business, if you're thinking of operating a business, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, if you're an investor or you're seeking an investor, you need to know what the data says so you can know how to position yourself and your brand for success this year, okay? There are many opportunities in the digital world now. And it's up for grabs, by 2030 all regulations should be in place, they say, so be mindful of that. Social media is everywhere. For many people, social media is used daily for entertainment, socialization, and even news consumption, myself included. Additionally, over the last 2 decades, it has risen as one of the primary marketing channels. With over 40% of the world's population on social media, it's critical your business devise an effective social media strategy to reach your intended audience. But whether you're pitching a social media campaign to your boss or deciding which social media platform your business should put paid advertising behind, it's vital you use data to support your efforts. Social media strategies ensure you know where to focus your marketing efforts to get the highest ROI, or return on investment, right? So here at UME Digital, we do social media. We do digital strategizing for our customers. We are a digital strategy company amongst our multimedia efforts. So we want to share with you this information. So, for example, if you are hoping to start a business as a social media consultant, or you're a customer who's seeking the services of a social media or digital strategist, for example, if you're seeking to come to UME Digital Media for service, this information is important for you to know so that when you come, you can be an informed customer and you can know what you want and know how to position yourself, as well as you'll be informed as to what we're supposed to be doing for you, okay? among others, because we're not the only ones, So, social media strategy guide is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. If you're a social media consultant and you're pitching a brand marketing or advertising campaign to a client, it's critical you're able to show how you'll help your client grow their business. So here are 6 steps you'll need to take to ensure your social media consulting proposal or business plan is effective, as well as for the customer or the client. Here are 6 steps that you should look for, or 6 things you should look for from anyone who's proposing to you a social media strategy for your business. 1, set clear goals. Figure out exactly where your company or client wants to go as far as their business and social media numbers. The clearer and more detailed the vision, the better. Follow SMART objectives. SMART as in SMART. Sure. Goal guidelines to ensure that you're on the right track. Understand your customers. Know who your target demographics are, because these are the people you're trying to reach and engage. Gather your own social media statistics and use existing data your company or client might already have to figure out who's interacting with the business and who might be good future prospects to reach. After you've done your research, you can create useful character personas to help you better understand and categorize customers. Know your customer. Know your business, know your customer. In essence, is what that's saying. Be familiar with any existing social media presence. If you're hired to run a company's social media accounts, it's critical you know about any previous social media postings, accounts, and experiments. By understanding what your client has already tried, you're better equipped to take them where they need to go in the future. This is something that I don't know why, but I often have a challenge with persons, like when we say, what are the things you used to do before? For some reason, I don't know if they're thinking that by sharing the information, then you are just going to do what they did. No, it's important to know where we've been for us to know where to go. Don't forget to pull your data. Before your new implemented strategies go underway, it's important to collect a baseline of how it was before, so that you have something to measure against in the future. For example, if you take inventory of how many views you're getting on Instagram stories before the new strategy is in effect, you can see if the new ideas are improving these numbers or not. It's important to keep a close eye on what is affecting your growth, positively or negatively, so that you know when you're on the right track or when you need to try something new so your business can keep growing. And finally, develop your strategy based on your findings. Define what your content will be, what platform it will be distributed on, and how it will vary between platforms. Figure out small details at this stage too, like your client's tone and voice on social media, either what it currently is or what it should be. Along with design and style elements. Always be sure you're staying true to your company or client's brand by consulting with existing materials like mission statements, guides, and handbook and brand books. At UME Digital Media, we work with entrepreneurs and businesses to manage their voice and reputation online. Alternatively, some businesses create roles in-house for a social media consultant. This is someone who is responsible for increasing brand awareness, responding to customer service complaints across social media platforms, and engaging with your audience online. So here are some trends that you should pay attention to. 71% of customers who've had a good social media service experience with a brand are likely to recommend it to others. And that's from that data is coming from Ambassador. 80% of companies online are under the impression that they deliver exceptional social media customer service, while only 8% of their customers say they agree, and that's from Smart Insights. 73% of marketers believe that their efforts through social media marketing have been somewhat effective or very effective for their business. That is from Buffer. Social networks are the biggest source of inspiration for customer service, with 37% of customers finding purchase inspiration through the channel. That's PWC. And then social, the final data for today: social media is the most relevant advertising channel for 50% of Gen Z and 42% of millennials. That's from Adobe. 50% of consumers say that seeing under-generated content would increase their chances of buying products through a brand's social media. That's from Curate. So I want to thank HubSpot for providing us with this information. It was most of what we shared with you here was from our access to HubSpot. We're a member and we're able to get the data for you. You can also do your own research to get data so you can know how to best position yourself, as you position your business. And finally, I would like to say congratulations to if you listen to the program regularly, then you know that in another area of my life, I am a success coach, and I'm a partner with what we call Mindfulness in Ministry Masterclass, and my co-instructor is Carl Merritt. I want to say congratulations to Minister Merritt today. He's also a record label executive and a music producer, and he won the 2019, it's the Song Door 2019 songwriting competition, international songwriting competition. So winner 2019, music producer extraordinaire Carl Merritt is spotlighted once again for his musical ingenuity as the winner of the Song Door International Songwriting Competition. Merritt won in the instrumental category with his winning melody Options. This is not Carl's first rodeo in the music business. Carl Merritt is a record label executive and performance coach. He has over 25 years, that's a quarter of a decade, of experience in the music industry, and has launched the career of over 10 recording artists. He has worked with celebrities like Ricky Lake, Mario, 98 Degrees, Voices of Glory, Marsha J, Aria Elan, Abby K, Ketura, Althea, and many more. And here is a quote from Carl Merritt. I just lost my mom, so this is like a flashlight shining in a very dark room, which has been my studio, oddly where I usually go to escape the world. You may have all the confidence in yourself, but when people who you don't know didn't have to impress or entice, just listen to your work and give this kind of commendation, it's a blessing. He continued, awards such as these, where the judges are from the industry, is an opportunity for legitimacy and recognition for something I created directly from my own heart and soul. It is such a compliment. To me, it was organic. Nothing except my work was required of me, just the raw music. I am from the Bronx. I didn't influence the decision. It was purely on merit, so it means so much to me. All my awards mean a lot to me. I have received about 4 or 5, but this one came at a time when I have just been so sad. I couldn't sleep because I was so excited. The first person I called was one of my colleagues. It was like a moment of relief and release. I am very, very thankful. Thanks to those who made it a reality. Thanks to Song Door and also to my brothers. What can I say? God knows how to shine a flashlight in a dark room. I am thankful. And in a quote from Song Door, we do not get any kind of kickback from any of our sponsors. We do this because we are songwriters. Our friends and colleagues are songwriters, and we know what it's like. We're here to help you be a better songwriter and to get your music heard by someone who can actually do something about it. Thank you so much for joining me this morning for the news roundup, and for tuning in to YuMe Radio. This is the YuMe Radio Morning Show. I'm DJ Kelly,